My grandma sat alone on her 80th, while my dad posted resort photos. I rushed to him. "I'm Sarah, I'm 28, and I discovered my father stole my grandmother's life savings to fund his vacation while she sat alone on her 80th birthday. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is what I found when I rushed to confront him at his luxury resort. What I discovered there changed everything I thought I knew about my family, and it led to the most satisfying revenge I've ever witnessed. You see, while my 80-year-old grandmother was sitting in her empty living room with a homemade cake and no visitors, my dad was posting Instagram stories from a 5-star resort in Hawaii. The same man who told me he couldn't afford to visit her anymore. The same man who said she was getting too difficult to handle. But when I dug deeper into his lies, I uncovered a betrayal so shocking that even I couldn't believe it. And neither will you. Please subscribe and be part of our sisterhood of storytellers. I'll never forget the moment I saw that photo. It was a Tuesday evening in October, and I was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram after another exhausting day at my marketing job in Seattle. I was 3,000 miles away from my family in Pennsylvania, feeling guilty as usual about the distance. That's when Grandma Rose's post appeared on my feed. There she was, sitting at her small kitchen table with a store-bought chocolate cake in front of her. She was wearing her best dress, the navy blue one with tiny flowers that she saved for special occasions. Her silver hair was perfectly curled, and she had put on lipstick and her pearl earrings. But her eyes told a different story. They looked so tired, so disappointed. The caption read, "Celebrating 80 years today. Grateful for another year of life." My heart sank. I had completely forgotten it was her birthday. I immediately called her, and when she answered, I could hear the forced cheerfulness in her voice. "Oh, Sarah, honey, what a wonderful surprise to hear from you." "Grandma, I'm so sorry I forgot your birthday. Are you okay? Did anyone come over?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from her lonely photo. "Well, your father said he might stop by later, but he's been so busy lately. You know how it is, dear. Don't worry about me, I'm just fine." But I could hear the crack in her voice, the way it wavered when she was trying not to cry. We talked for 20 minutes, and she told me about her day. How she had made herself a nice breakfast, how she had hoped someone might call or visit, how she had dressed up just in case. She mentioned that she had made enough food for several people, thinking maybe some of the family would surprise her. The loneliness in her voice was devastating. After we hung up, I felt sick to my stomach. Here was this incredible woman who had raised 4 children, worked 2 jobs to support her family after Grandpa died, and had been the backbone of our family for decades. She deserved so much better than spending her 80th birthday alone. I immediately started calling family members. My Aunt Lisa in Florida said she had sent a card but couldn't make the trip. My Uncle Mike claimed he thought the birthday was next week. But when I called my dad, David, it went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times over the next hour. Nothing. That's when I decided to check his social media, something I rarely did since we weren't particularly close. What I found made my blood boil. His Instagram story from that very day showed him lounging by a pool with a tropical drink in his hand. The location tag read, Grand Wailea Resort Maui. The timestamp showed he had posted it just 2 hours before Grandma's birthday photo. I scrolled through more of his posts. Pictures of him and his girlfriend Monica at an expensive restaurant. Videos of them laughing on the beach. Stories of them getting couples massages at the spa. All posted throughout the day while his mother sat alone on her milestone birthday. But what really pushed me over the edge was his most recent post from that evening. It was a photo of him and Monica raising champagne glasses with the caption, "Living our best life." Sometimes you just have to put yourself first and enjoy the beautiful moments. I screenshotted everything. My hands were shaking with rage. How could he be so selfish? How could he abandon his own mother on such an important day? And how was he affording these luxury vacations when he constantly complained about being broke and unable to help Grandma with anything? I knew I had to do something. This couldn't continue. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Grandma Rose sitting alone at that table, dressed up for a birthday celebration that never came. By 3 a.m., I was back on my phone, diving deeper into my father's social media presence like a detective on a mission. What I discovered was even worse than I had imagined. This wasn't just one vacation. My dad had been living like a millionaire for months. I scrolled back through his Instagram posts and found evidence of trip after trip. A weekend in Napa Valley in September, a luxury cruise to Alaska in August, a 5-day stay at a resort in Scottsdale in July. Each trip featured the same pattern: expensive restaurants, high-end hotels, spa treatments, and designer shopping bags. But the most infuriating part was the timing. I cross-referenced his vacation posts with my own calendar and text messages. The Napa trip happened the exact weekend Grandma had called me crying because she had fallen in her garden and needed help cleaning up. She had mentioned that she tried calling my dad, but he never responded. Now I knew why. He was busy wine tasting in California. The Alaska cruise coincided with the week Grandma had been in the emergency room with chest pains. I remembered frantically calling family members, including my dad, to let them know. He had texted back saying he was tied up with work and couldn't make it to the hospital. The photos showed him laughing on the ship's deck while his 79-year-old mother sat alone in a hospital bed, scared she might be having a heart attack. I started documenting everything: screenshots, dates, locations. The evidence painted a clear picture of a man who had completely abandoned his responsibilities as a son. But it got worse. I noticed that Monica, his girlfriend, was tagged in every single post. Her Instagram was public, and she was clearly documenting the same trips from her perspective. Monica's posts were even more revealing. She frequently mentioned how generous my dad was and how he always knew how to treat a lady right. She posted photos of expensive jewelry he had bought her, designer handbags, and luxury experiences. In one particularly nauseating post from their Hawaii trip, she wrote, "My man knows how to live life to the fullest. No regrets, no looking back, just pure happiness and adventure." The contrast was staggering. While Monica was bragging about my father's generosity on social media, I had been sending Grandma money every month to help with her grocery bills. I had been the one arranging for her medications to be delivered when she couldn't drive to the pharmacy. I had been the one calling her every week to check on her, listening to her worry about paying her heating bill in the winter. I found posts from their current Hawaii trip that showed them at restaurants where I knew a single meal cost more than Grandma's weekly grocery budget. There was a photo of Monica wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than Grandma's monthly Social Security check. The caption read, "Feeling grateful for this amazing life and the man who makes it all possible." By dawn, I had compiled a timeline that made me sick to my stomach. While Grandma had been struggling with loneliness, health scares, and financial worries, my father had been gallivanting around the country with his girlfriend, spending money like it was water. Money he claimed he didn't have whenever Grandma needed help. I knew I needed to confront him directly, but first, I wanted to understand how he was funding this lifestyle. My dad had always been middle management at an insurance company. His salary couldn't possibly support these constant luxury vacations. There had to be more to this story, and I was determined to find out what it was. I waited until what I calculated would be 10 a.m. Hawaii time before calling my father. I wanted him to be awake, probably lounging by the pool with his morning mimosa, completely relaxed and off guard. When he finally answered after 6 rings, I could hear tropical music and laughter in the background. "Sarah, this is unexpected. What's wrong?" His voice had that guilty edge that people get when they know they've been caught doing something wrong. "What's wrong?" I repeated, my voice shaking with controlled anger. "Dad, yesterday was Grandma's 80th birthday, her 80th birthday, and she spent it completely alone." There was a pause. I heard him say something to Monica in the background, then footsteps as he presumably walked away from the pool area. "Look, Sarah, I meant to call her, but things have been crazy busy here with work and—" "Work?" I interrupted. "Dad, I can see your Instagram. You're in Hawaii at a 5-star resort. You've been posting pictures all week of you and Monica living it up while your mother sat alone on the most important birthday of her life." "You don't understand the situation," he said, his tone shifting to defensive. "Your grandmother is getting very demanding lately. She expects us to drop everything every time she has some minor issue. I need to live my life too, Sarah. I can't be at her beck and call 24/7. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Demanding? Dad, she's 80 years old. She never asks for anything. The only time she calls you is when something is seriously wrong, and apparently you're too busy taking vacations to even answer your phone. That's not fair. I help her when I can, but I also have my own life to live. Monica and I work hard, and we deserve to enjoy ourselves. Your grandmother lived her life, now it's time for us to live ours." The callousness in his voice made my stomach turn. "How are you even affording all these trips? You told me last year you couldn't help Grandma with her medication costs because money was tight." Another pause. My finances are none of your business, Sarah. I'm a grown man, and I don't need to justify my spending to my daughter. Your finances become my business when you're abandoning your responsibilities to your own mother. While you're spending hundreds of dollars on fancy dinners, she's eating canned soup and worrying about her heating bill. She's fine, Sarah. You're being dramatic just like she is. These elderly people, they get lonely and they blow everything out of proportion. She has a roof over her head, food to eat, and her health. What more does she need? She needs her family, I shouted. She needs to know that the people she sacrificed everything for actually care about her. She raised 4 children as a single mother after Grandpa died, working 2 jobs to keep you all fed and clothed, and this is how you repay her. That was her choice, he said coldly. Nobody forced her to have 4 kids, and nobody is forcing her to sit around feeling sorry for herself now. If she's lonely, she should make friends her own age or find some activities. I was speechless. The cruelty of his words hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't the father I remembered from childhood. This was a stranger, a selfish stranger who had somehow convinced himself that his own mother's need for love and companionship was an unreasonable burden. You know what, Dad? Don't bother coming back from Hawaii. Grandma is better off without you. I was about to hang up when he said something that stopped me cold. Sarah, wait. There's something you don't understand about the whole situation with your grandmother. It's more complicated than you think. What do you mean? But the line had already gone dead. He had hung up on me. I immediately called Grandma Rose back, my hands still trembling from the confrontation with my father. When she answered, she sounded tired but tried to put on her usual cheerful front. Sarah, honey, 2 calls in 2 days, what a treat. Is everything all right? Grandma, I need to ask you something and I need you to be completely honest with me. How long has Dad been treating you like this? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in her living room, the same clock that had been there since I was a child. Oh, sweetheart, why are you asking about that? Her voice had changed, becoming smaller, more fragile. Because I saw his Instagram posts, Grandma. He's been on vacation in Hawaii while you spent your 80th birthday alone. I called him, and the things he said, I just need to know how long this has been going on. I heard her take a shaky breath. Well, I suppose there's no point in pretending anymore. Your father has been distant for about 2 years now, ever since he started dating that Monica woman. What do you mean by distant? He used to visit every other weekend, you know. We'd have dinner, watch our shows together. But then Monica came along and suddenly he was always too busy. First it was just the weekends. Then the holiday visits got shorter and shorter. Last Christmas he stayed for maybe 2 hours before rushing off to some party. My heart was breaking as she spoke. Why didn't you tell me any of this before? Oh, honey, you have your own life to worry about. You're 3,000 miles away building your career. I didn't want to burden you with an old woman's complaints. Grandma, you're not a burden. You could never be a burden to me. She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, I could hear the tears in her voice. The hardest part isn't the missed visits, Sarah. It's the lies. When your cousins call and ask about family gatherings, I have to pretend everything is fine. When the neighbors ask why they never see David anymore, I make excuses about how busy he is with work. What kinds of excuses does he make to the family? He tells everyone I'm too tired for company, that I get confused easily now and prefer to be alone. Your Aunt Lisa called last month asking if she should visit, and apparently David told her that I had said I didn't want houseguests anymore because they stress me out too much. I felt sick. Grandma, that's horrible. That's not true at all. Of course it's not true. I would love nothing more than to have family visit. I haven't had anyone over for dinner in months. I still cook like I'm feeding a family of 6, and then I end up throwing most of it away because I'm the only one eating it. The image of my grandmother cooking large meals for people who would never come was devastating. Has he been helping you financially at all? Another long pause. Well, that's where things get complicated. Sarah, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but your father has been managing some of my finances for the past year. He said it would be easier for him to handle my bills since I sometimes forget due dates. What do you mean managing your finances? He has access to my checking account, and he set up automatic transfers from my savings to help with what he calls family expenses. He said it was temporary, just until he got back on his feet after his divorce from your stepmother. I felt like I was going to be sick. Grandma, how much money are we talking about? I'm not sure, dear. He handles all of that now. He says it's better if I don't worry about the numbers, just focus on staying healthy and happy. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed was absolutely horrifying. After hanging up with Grandma, I couldn't sit still. I paced around my apartment for an hour, my mind racing with everything she had told me. The financial access, the lies to family members, the systematic isolation. This wasn't just neglect anymore. This was something much more sinister. I started by calling my Aunt Lisa in Florida. When she answered, I could hear my young cousins playing in the background. Sarah, how lovely to hear from you. How are you doing up there in Seattle? I'm okay, Aunt Lisa. I'm actually calling about Grandma Rose. I was wondering when you last spoke to her. Oh, well, I called her a few weeks ago to see if she wanted me to visit for her birthday, but David said she's been having some health issues and gets overwhelmed easily with company. He thought it would be better if I waited until the holidays. My blood boiled. Aunt Lisa, did Dad tell you specifically that Grandma said she didn't want visitors? Yes, he said she told him that having people over makes her anxious now, and that she prefers quiet time. He was very concerned about her mental state, actually. Said she's been getting confused about things and sometimes forgets conversations they've had. I gripped my phone tighter. Every word was another lie, another way my father had systematically cut Grandma off from her support system. Has he said anything else about her condition? Well, he mentioned that her memory isn't what it used to be, and that sometimes she makes up stories or exaggerates situations to get attention. He said it's normal for people her age, but that we shouldn't take everything she says too seriously. The manipulation was breathtaking. My father had created a narrative where Grandma was unreliable and antisocial, effectively discrediting her before she could tell anyone what was really happening. I called Uncle Mike next, and the story was eerily similar. Dad had told him that Grandma was becoming difficult and demanding, and that she often called family members with dramatic stories about being neglected when she was actually fine. Uncle Mike had been planning to visit for Christmas, but Dad had suggested it might be too stressful for her. My youngest uncle Tommy had been told that Grandma was developing early signs of dementia and that it was better to limit her social interactions to prevent her from getting agitated. Dad had even suggested that too much family attention might make her condition worse. The web of lies was comprehensive and calculated. My father hadn't just abandoned Grandma, he had systematically destroyed her relationships with the entire family to cover his tracks. He had painted her as mentally unstable, antisocial, and unreliable, so that if she did try to reach out for help, no one would take her seriously. I spent the next few hours calling distant relatives and family friends. The pattern was consistent across every conversation. Dad had contacted each of them over the past year with some variation of the same story. Grandma was declining mentally, she got confused easily, she sometimes made up problems for attention, and it was better to give her space. Mrs. Henderson, Grandma's neighbor for 20 years, told me that my father had even spoken to her. He had explained that his mother was going through a difficult adjustment period and that she might seem lonely or neglected, but that the family was handling it privately. He had asked Mrs. Henderson to call him instead of visiting directly if she was ever concerned about anything. The most disturbing call was to Father Martinez from Grandma's church. Dad had told him that Grandma was struggling with paranoid thoughts and sometimes accused family members of neglecting her when they were actually very attentive. He had requested that the church limit their check-ins to avoid reinforcing her delusions. By the time I finished making calls, I had documented a systematic campaign of isolation and character assassination. My father hadn't just stolen money and abandoned his mother. He had orchestrated an elaborate plan to ensure that no one would believe her if she tried to get help. The cruelty and premeditation of it left me speechless. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't focus on marketing campaigns and client presentations when my grandmother was being systematically robbed and isolated by her own son. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I started by calling Grandma again, but this time I had specific questions about her finances. She was initially reluctant to discuss money, saying it wasn't something a lady talked about, but I gently pressed her for details. Grandma, I need you to help me understand Dad's arrangement with your bank account. When did this start? It was about 14 months ago, right after your stepmother left him. He was having trouble paying his mortgage and said he needed temporary help. He offered to take over managing my bills in exchange, said it would be easier for both of us. Do you remember how much you were giving him each month? Well, he said my expenses were about $1,800 monthly, and that he would transfer $2,000 from my savings to cover everything plus a little extra for emergencies. I did quick math in my head. Grandma's house had been paid off for years, and her utilities, groceries, and medications couldn't possibly cost anywhere near $1,800 a month. Grandma, what bills exactly is he paying? I'm not entirely sure, dear. He handles all of that now. He said it was too stressful for me to worry about due dates and amounts. Do you have access to your online banking? Oh no, David set up some kind of automatic system. He said it was safer if everything went through him since there are so many scammers targeting elderly people online. Red flags were going off in my head. Grandma, do you get bank statements in the mail? David said it was better to go paperless to protect the environment. He gets everything electronically now and reviews it for me. I felt sick. My father had completely cut Grandma off from her own financial information. She had no idea how much money she had, how much was being taken, or where it was going. Do you remember how much money you had in savings when this arrangement started? There was a long pause. I think it was around $45,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to make me feel secure for the rest of my life. $45,000. I thought about all the luxury vacations I had seen on my father's Instagram. The resort in Hawaii alone probably cost $5,000. The cruise to Alaska, the Napa Valley weekend, the Scottsdale resort. I estimated he had spent at least $20,000 in the past few months alone. Grandma, I need to ask you something and I need you to trust me. Would you be willing to call the bank with me on three-way and check your account balance? Oh, I don't know if I should do that without asking David first. He gets upset when I interfere with the financial arrangements. Grandma, it's your money. You have every right to know how much you have. It took me another 20 minutes to convince her, but she finally agreed. We called her bank together, and after verifying her identity, the customer service representative gave us the information that confirmed my worst fears. Her checking account had $37 in it. Her savings account, which had contained $45,000 14 months ago, now had less than $8,000. In just over a year, my father had stolen nearly $37,000 from his own mother. But the details were even worse. The bank representative explained that there had been numerous large transfers and withdrawals, including several $5,000 transfers to an account belonging to David Miller in the past 3 months alone. The timing perfectly matched his vacation posts. Grandma was silent for a long time after we hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Sarah, what am I going to do? I spent that entire night lying awake, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything I had discovered. My father had stolen nearly $40,000 from his own mother, isolated her from family and friends with lies about her mental state, and was currently living it up in Hawaii while she worried about paying her heating bill. The cruelty of it was beyond anything I had imagined possible, but what made me even angrier was knowing that he thought he was going to get away with it. He had been so careful, so methodical in his manipulation. He probably assumed that no one would ever question his version of events, that Grandma would be too ashamed or confused to fight back, and that the family would continue believing his lies about her declining mental state. He was wrong. I started planning my revenge that night, and by morning, I had the outline of something that would expose him completely while giving Grandma the justice she deserved. It needed to be public, undeniable, and devastating. Most importantly, it needed to show everyone exactly who David Miller really was. The first step was gathering irrefutable evidence. I had already screenshot his social media posts, but I needed more. I called the bank again and, with Grandma's permission, requested detailed statements for the past 14 months. They agreed to mail them directly to my apartment in Seattle. Next, I needed to document the lies he had told family members. I started calling relatives again, but this time I recorded the conversations with their permission, explaining that I was trying to understand Grandma's situation better. Each person repeated the same stories Dad had told them about Grandma's supposed mental decline and antisocial behavior. The pattern was so consistent and calculated that it was clearly evidence of a deliberate campaign of character assassination. I had Uncle Mike describing how Dad warned him about Grandma's paranoid episodes. I had Aunt Lisa explaining how Dad said Grandma was becoming confused and dramatic. I had multiple family friends and neighbors recounting similar warnings about her supposed mental instability. I also started researching elder financial abuse laws. What my father had done wasn't just morally reprehensible, it was criminal. I found a local attorney who specialized in elder abuse cases and made an appointment for the following week. But the centerpiece of my plan required getting my father back from Hawaii and into a situation where he couldn't escape or make excuses. I needed him surrounded by the entire family, in a setting where his lies would be exposed publicly and completely. That's when I came up with the fake emergency plan. I would create a crisis that would force him to come home immediately, then organize a gathering that would seem supportive but would actually be the stage for his public destruction. The beauty of the plan was that it used his own selfishness against him. He had trained the family to expect drama from Grandma, so when I called with a crisis, it would seem to validate everything he had been saying. He would come rushing back, expecting to play the role of the concerned son dealing with his difficult mother. Instead, he would walk into a room full of people who were about to learn the truth about what he had done. I spent hours crafting the perfect fake emergency. It needed to be serious enough to make him cut his vacation short, but not so serious that it would cause genuine panic among family members. I decided on a story about Grandma falling and being hospitalized with a potential head injury, but being stable and conscious. I also had to coordinate the family gathering carefully. I needed to get everyone together without arousing his suspicion, and I needed to make sure I had all my evidence ready to present. Most importantly, I needed to make sure Grandma was prepared for what was going to happen and was strong enough to face the confrontation that would follow. The plan was risky, but it was also perfect. By the time I was finished, my father would be completely exposed, and there would be no way for him to manipulate his way out of the consequences. It was time to bring David Miller down. Over the next 3 days, I worked like a woman possessed. I took vacation time from work and turned my apartment into a command center for building the case against my father. My dining table was covered with printed bank statements, screenshots of social media posts, and handwritten notes from my conversations with family members. The bank statements that arrived from Pennsylvania were even worse than I had anticipated. The pattern of theft was methodical and escalating. It had started with the monthly $2,000 transfers that Dad claimed were for Grandma's expenses, but quickly grew to include additional emergency withdrawals. There was a $5,000 transfer in March labeled home repairs that coincided exactly with his Scottsdale vacation. Another $3,000 withdrawal in June for medical expenses that happened the same week he posted photos of expensive dinners in Napa Valley. Most damning was a $7,000 withdrawal from August labeled nursing care consultation that occurred during his Alaska cruise. I had spoken to Grandma that same week, and she had mentioned feeling perfectly fine and wondering why she hadn't heard from David in so long. I created a detailed timeline that cross-referenced every major withdrawal with his social media posts. The correlation was perfect. Every luxury vacation, every expensive restaurant meal, every designer gift for Monica had been funded directly by stealing from his own mother's life savings. But I needed more than just financial records. I needed to document the current state of Grandma's living situation to contrast with Dad's lifestyle. I called Mrs. Henderson, Grandma's neighbor, and asked if she would be willing to help me understand how Grandma was really doing. Mrs. Henderson was eager to talk. She had been worried about Rose for months, but had been unsure whether to interfere based on what David had told her. "Your grandmother has been eating the same 3 meals on rotation for weeks," Mrs. Henderson told me. "Canned soup, peanut butter sandwiches, and scrambled eggs. I offered to take her grocery shopping, but she said she was trying to be more careful with her spending." "Has she mentioned any financial concerns?" "Oh, honey, she's been worried sick about money. She told me last month that she was thinking about canceling her cable television to save money, and she's been keeping her heat turned down so low that I worry about her getting sick. Meanwhile, I see her son's girlfriend posting pictures online of them eating at restaurants that cost more than Rose spends on groceries in a month." Mrs. Henderson also revealed something I hadn't known. Grandma had been trying to get a part-time job at the local grocery store to help with expenses. At 80 years old, she was considering bagging groceries to make ends meet while her son vacationed in Hawaii. I asked Mrs. Henderson if she would be willing to document Grandma's current living conditions with photos, and she agreed immediately. She was as outraged as I was about the situation. The photos Mrs. Henderson sent me were heartbreaking. Grandma's refrigerator was nearly empty except for basics like milk, eggs, and cheap lunch meat. Her medicine cabinet showed that she was rationing her prescriptions, taking them every other day instead of daily to make them last longer. Her thermostat was set to 62 degrees in October. Meanwhile, I had screenshots of Dad and Monica at a seafood restaurant in Maui, where they had spent more on one dinner than Grandma spent on food in a week. I also reached out to Father Martinez at Grandma's church. Once I explained what was really happening, he was horrified. He revealed that the church had been concerned about Rose's absence from services, but had been told by David that she was going through a difficult period and preferred to worship privately at home. We offered to arrange visits from our pastoral care team, Father Martinez told me. But your father said it would be better to let her reach out when she was ready. We've been respaying for her, but respecting what we thought were her wishes. By the end of the week, I had compiled a comprehensive case file that documented not only the financial theft, but also the systematic isolation and emotional abuse that had enabled it. I waited until Sunday evening to make the call, calculating that Dad would be relaxed and off guard after a full day of vacation activities. When he answered, I could hear ocean waves in the background and the distant sound of a hotel bar. "Sarah, this better be important. Monica and I are having dinner." I took a deep breath and put on my most panicked voice. "Dad, you need to get home right now. Something's happened to Grandma." There was a pause. Then I heard him say something to Monica and the background noise faded as he presumably walked away from the restaurant. "What do you mean something's happened? What kind of something?" "She fell in her bathroom this afternoon. Mrs. Henderson found her when she didn't answer her door for their usual Sunday check-in. She's at Mercy General Hospital right now." "How bad is it?" His voice had shifted to concern, but I could hear the annoyance underneath. This was disrupting his vacation. "They're not sure yet. She hit her head pretty hard and was unconscious when the paramedics arrived. She's awake now, but the doctors are worried about a possible concussion or worse. They want to keep her for observation, but Dad, she's been asking for you. She keeps saying she needs to tell you something important." I heard him sigh heavily. "Look, Sarah, I'm sure she's fine. You know how your grandmother gets dramatic about medical situations. Remember when she thought she was having a heart attack and it turned out to be heartburn? Dad, she was unconscious. Mrs. Henderson couldn't wake her up. This isn't drama, this is serious. Can't you handle it? I'm in the middle of an important vacation with Monica. We've been planning this trip for months." The selfishness in his voice was exactly what I had expected, but it still made my blood boil. "Dad, she's your mother. She's 80 years old and she's in the hospital asking for her son. How can you even think about staying on vacation right now?" Another long pause. I could hear him thinking, probably calculating how much this was going to cost him to change his flight. "Fine, but this better not be one of her attention-seeking episodes. Monica is going to be furious about cutting the trip short." "I don't think Grandma fell and hit her head for attention, Dad. You'd be surprised what people will do when they feel neglected. I'll see if I can get a flight out tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "Dad, she's in the hospital right now. Tonight." "Sarah, do you have any idea how expensive it is to change flights at the last minute? And Monica will have to change hers too. This is going to cost us thousands of dollars." I almost laughed at the irony. He was worried about spending thousands of his own dollars while he had stolen nearly $40,000 from the woman lying in the hospital bed. "Dad, I'll pay for the flight changes. I'll wire you the money right now. Just please come home." That got his attention. "You'll pay for both flights?" "Yes, whatever it costs. Just get here as soon as you can." I heard him talking to Monica again, explaining the situation. I could hear her voice in the background, clearly upset about their vacation being interrupted. "Okay," he said finally. "We'll try to get a red-eye flight tonight, but Sarah, this better be as serious as you're making it sound." "It is, Dad. I promise you, this is as serious as it gets." After we hung up, I immediately called the family members I needed for the next phase of my plan. I told each of them the same story about Grandma's fall and hospitalization, but added that she was stable and would likely be released in a day or two. I asked if they could come for a family gathering when Dad got back from his emergency trip, to show support during this difficult time. Everyone agreed to come. They were concerned about Grandma and wanted to help however they could. What they didn't know was that they were walking into the most important family meeting any of us had ever attended. Dad's flight landed at 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning, and by 10 a.m., I was getting text messages demanding to know which hospital Grandma was at. I told him she had been released earlier that morning and was resting at home, but that I thought it would be good for the family to gather and discuss how to better support her going forward. "I drove straight from the airport to her house," he texted. "She seems fine, confused about why I rushed back from Hawaii, but fine." I smiled as I read the message. Of course Grandma seemed confused. She had no idea about the fake emergency I had created. But I had called her the night before and explained that I was planning a family gathering to discuss some important issues, and that it was crucial she didn't mention our previous conversations about her finances until everyone was present. The gathering was set for 2 p.m. at Grandma's house. I had told everyone that we needed to have a serious discussion about her care and living situation following her recent health scare. Aunt Lisa had driven up from Florida. Uncle Mike and his wife came from Pittsburgh. Uncle Tommy brought his teenage daughter. Even several family friends and neighbors had agreed to attend, including Mrs. Henderson and Father Martinez. I had spent the morning setting up my laptop and a small projector I had rented. I told Dad I wanted to show everyone some photos from Grandma's hospital stay and discuss the incident that had brought us all together. When I arrived at Grandma's house at 1:30, Dad was sitting in the living room with Monica, both of them looking irritated and exhausted from their abrupt travel. "This better not take long," Monica said as I walked in. "We lost 2 days of our vacation because of this drama." "Oh, it won't take long at all," I replied. "Once everyone sees what I have to show them, I think we'll all understand the situation much better." By 2:15, the living room was packed. Grandma sat in her favorite chair, looking confused but happy to see so many family members in her home for the first time in months. Dad sat on the couch with Monica, checking his phone and making it clear he wanted to be anywhere else. I stood up and cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I know everyone was concerned when they heard about Grandma's fall yesterday." Uncle Mike nodded. "How are you feeling today, Mom? You look pretty good for someone who just got out of the hospital." Grandma looked puzzled. "Hospital? I haven't been to the hospital, dear. I've been fine." I saw Dad's eyes snap up from his phone. He was starting to realize something was wrong. "Actually," I continued, "Grandma is absolutely right. She hasn't been to the hospital. There was no fall, no head injury, no emergency at all. I made the whole thing up to get Dad to come home from his vacation." The room went completely silent. Dad's face had gone white. "Sarah, what the hell are you doing?" he demanded. "I'm doing what should have been done a long time ago. I'm telling this family the truth about what's been happening to Grandma while everyone thought she was fine." I turned on the projector and my first slide appeared on the wall. It was a side-by-side comparison. On the left, a photo of Grandma's nearly empty refrigerator taken by Mrs. Henderson last week. On the right, a screenshot from Monica's Instagram showing their expensive dinner in Maui from the same day. For the past 14 months, Dad has been systematically stealing money from Grandma's bank account to fund his luxury lifestyle. While she's been rationing her medications and eating canned soup, he's been taking exotic vacations and spending thousands of dollars on himself and his girlfriend. Dad stood up abruptly. "This is insane. Sarah, you're having some kind of breakdown. We should go. Sit down, Dad. We're just getting started." Dad remained standing, his face flushed with anger and panic. "Sarah, whatever you think you've discovered, you're wrong. This is embarrassing for the whole family. The only thing that's embarrassing is what you've done to your own mother." I clicked to the next slide, showing the bank statements. "In 14 months, you've stolen $37,000 from Grandma's savings account. Here's the proof." The room erupted in shocked gasps. Aunt Lisa stood up, staring at the screen in disbelief. "David, is this true? It's not stealing," Dad said desperately. "Mom asked me to help manage her finances. She was getting confused about her bills." I clicked again. The next slide showed timestamps comparing his vacation posts with the major withdrawals. "This $7,000 medical expense withdrawal happened the exact day you posted this video of you and Monica getting couples massages in Alaska. Grandma wasn't even sick that week." Uncle Mike's voice was cold with fury. "You son of a bitch. While Mom was worried about paying her heating bill, you were living like a king on her money. And that's not even the worst part," I continued. Dad has been systematically lying to all of you about Grandma's condition to cover his tracks. I clicked to recorded audio files. These are recordings of conversations where Dad told each of you that Grandma was becoming mentally unstable, antisocial, and unreliable. I played Uncle Tommy's recording first. Dad's voice filled the room. She's been having episodes where she makes up stories about being neglected. It's probably early dementia. You should probably keep your distance until we figure out how to handle it. Grandma's face crumpled as she heard her son's words. David, how could you say such things about me? Father Martinez spoke up, his voice shaking with anger. David, you told me Rose was having paranoid delusions about her family abandoning her. You asked us to stop our pastoral visits. He told me the same thing, Mrs. Henderson added. Said Rose was making up stories for attention and that I shouldn't believe everything she said. I played more recordings. Each one revealed another layer of Dad's manipulation campaign. He had convinced everyone that Grandma was mentally declining and prone to fabricating problems, ensuring that no one would believe her if she tried to ask for help. Monica had been silent throughout the presentation, but now she stood up, her face pale. David, you told me your mother was financially comfortable and didn't need anything from us. You said she was just lonely and demanding. Monica, don't listen to this. Sarah is trying to destroy our relationship. Our relationship? Monica's voice was getting louder. You've been stealing from your own mother to pay for our vacations? I thought you had savings. Aunt Lisa was crying now. David, I haven't visited Mom in 8 months because you said she didn't want company. I've been sending cards instead of coming to see her because I thought that's what she wanted. The room was chaos. Everyone was talking at once, demanding answers, expressing their horror and disbelief. Dad looked around desperately, realizing that his carefully constructed web of lies was completely unraveling in front of the people whose opinions mattered most to him. This isn't over, he said, grabbing his keys. Sarah, you have no idea what you've started. But as he headed for the door, I smiled. Actually, Dad, I know exactly what I've started, and there's one more thing everyone needs to know. Dad froze at the door, his hand on the knob. The entire room went silent, waiting for whatever final revelation I was about to deliver. Even Monica had stopped crying and was staring at me with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The truth is, I said slowly, I'm not the only one who's been investigating Dad's behavior. Grandma, would you like to tell everyone about the recordings you've been making? The room erupted in confused murmurs. Grandma Rose sat up straighter in her chair, and for the first time all day she smiled. It wasn't the sweet, gentle smile I was used to seeing. It was the determined, sharp smile of a woman who had been planning something for a very long time. Well, Grandma said, her voice suddenly stronger and clearer than it had been in months. I suppose it's time to show everyone what I've been working on. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small digital recorder, the kind investigators use for interviews. Dad's face went white as she held it up. You see, David, I may be 80 years old, but I'm not stupid. I started recording our conversations about 6 months ago when I began to suspect what you were really doing with my money. She clicked a button, and Dad's voice filled the room. Mom, you need to stop questioning every little expense. I'm handling your finances now, and frankly, you're getting too old to understand how money works. Just trust me and stop being so paranoid. Uncle Mike's jaw dropped. Mom, you've been recording him this whole time? I have hours of recordings, Grandma continued calmly. David admitting that he's been taking more money than necessary. David getting angry when I asked to see my own bank statements. David threatening to put me in a nursing home if I didn't stop interfering with his management of my finances. She played another clip. Mom, if you keep causing problems about money, I'll have to consider whether you're competent to live alone anymore. There are facilities for people who can't handle their own affairs. The room was dead silent, except for Dad's recorded voice threatening his own mother. Monica backed away from him, horror written across her face. But the best recording, Grandma said with satisfaction, is from last month when David thought I was napping. She played the final clip, and this time we heard Dad talking to someone on the phone. She'll never figure out how much I've taken. Even if she does, who's going to believe her? I've already told everyone she's losing her mind. By the time this is over, there won't be anything left anyway, and she'll be in a state facility somewhere. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad stood frozen at the door, trapped between the family he had betrayed and the outside world where he would have to face the consequences of what everyone had just heard. Father Martinez stood up, his voice shaking with rage. "David, you're not just a thief. You're a predator who targeted your own mother." Aunt Lisa was sobbing. "How could you be so cruel? She raised you. She sacrificed everything for you." "But I wasn't finished yet. Grandma, tell everyone about the other evidence you've collected." Grandma's smile grew wider. "Well, I've also been keeping detailed journals of every time David visited, what he said and what he took. I've photographed my bank statements before and after his help began, and I've been working with Sarah for the past week to prepare a case for the district attorney's office." The trap was complete. Dad collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. The fight had completely gone out of him as he realized the extent of his exposure. Monica was already gathering her purse, clearly planning her exit from both the room and the relationship. "David, I can't believe you made me an accessory to stealing from your own mother," she said, her voice cold. "Every dinner, every vacation, every gift you gave me was bought with money stolen from an 80-year-old woman. I'm done." She walked out without another word, leaving Dad sitting alone while his family stared at him with a mixture of disgust and disbelief. Uncle Mike spoke first. "David, you have exactly one chance to make this right. You're going to return every penny you stole, and you're going to turn yourself in to the police." "And if you don't," I added, "Grandma and I will be filing charges tomorrow morning anyway. Elder financial abuse is a felony, Dad. You're looking at serious prison time." Dad finally looked up, his eyes red and desperate. "I can pay back some of it, but not all. I've already spent most of it." "Then you'll figure out how to get the rest," Aunt Lisa said sharply. "Take out loans, sell your house, liquidate your retirement accounts. I don't care what you have to do." Over the next hour, we laid out the terms of Dad's reckoning. He would return $37,000 to Grandma's account within 30 days. He would publicly apologize to every family member and friend he had lied to about Grandma's condition. He would surrender all access to her financial accounts immediately, and he would pay for a year of housekeeping and grocery delivery services for Grandma as additional restitution. Most importantly, he would have no contact with Grandma unless she specifically requested it, and any future contact would be supervised by other family members. 3 weeks later, I took a leave of absence from my job in Seattle and moved back to Pennsylvania to be closer to Grandma. The money had been returned to her accounts, and she was already looking healthier and happier with the stress of financial worry lifted from her shoulders. Dad had indeed turned himself into the police, though I suspected it was more to avoid having us file charges than from any genuine remorse. He was facing 3 felony counts of elder financial abuse and would likely serve at least 2 years in prison. The family rallied around Grandma in a way that hadn't happened in years. Uncle Mike started visiting every weekend. Aunt Lisa planned to spend Christmas in Pennsylvania for the first time in 5 years. The church resumed their regular visits, and Mrs. Henderson had become a constant companion for grocery shopping and social activities. But the best part was watching Grandma reclaim her confidence and independence. She had proven that she was far from the confused, helpless victim Dad had portrayed her to be. She was a strong, intelligent woman who had outsmarted the man who thought he could take advantage of her. On her 81st birthday, her house was filled with family, friends, and neighbors, celebrating the woman who had taught us all that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. Justice had been served, and Grandma Rose had gotten exactly what she deserved: respect, love, and the satisfaction of seeing her abuser face the consequences of his cruelty. 6 months later, I was helping Grandma plant flowers in her garden when she said something that gave me chills. "You know, Sarah, the hardest part wasn't the money he stole, or even the lies he told everyone. The hardest part was pretending to be the helpless old woman he thought I was." I looked up at her, confused. "What do you mean, pretending?" She smiled that same sharp smile I had seen the day of the family meeting. "Sweetheart, I knew exactly what David was doing from the very beginning. I let him think he was outsmarting me while I gathered evidence and planned his downfall. The only thing I needed was someone I could trust to help me execute it." The power reversal hit me like lightning. Grandma hadn't been the victim at all. She had been the mastermind, and I had been her unwitting accomplice in the perfect revenge. "So when I called you that first night, angry about his Instagram posts, I knew you'd do exactly what you did. You're a good granddaughter, Sarah. You just needed the right motivation to help me teach my son a lesson he'll never forget. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Thank you for being here. Her journey was heavy, but it led her back to herself. Watch another powerful story by clicking on the left, and don't forget to subscribe for more voices that deserve to be heard.